Shalom, friends. It's Yom HaShoah now, Holocaust Remembrance Day. When you hear this, it'll be a few days later. But nonetheless, for Parshat Tazria Metzora, we actually only have one drasha for Metzora Tafshin 1940 in Eish Kodesh, nothing in Derech HaMelech. So there's really only one drasha for this double Parsha, which I've spoken about before a number of times. So I decided not to speak about it again. Again, went back to Zav V'Ziruz, the Rebbe's diary, and just flipped through looking for something interesting to share. And I came across something which I think is relevant to Yom HaShoah, chapter 25, Parakaf Hey, where he talks about suicide, which apparently in the 1920s, 26 to 28, because of the horrific economic crisis of the Depression and how everything in Poland affected the Jews much worse than everyone else because of the anti-Semitic laws, there was a wave of suicides of people who had lost all their livelihood or ability to make any kind of parnasa. So the Rebbe talks about that, and he says, Al tivku lememidatzmo bilvad b'chol b'che gam leholech umet. Don't only cry over one who commits suicide, but cry as well over one who is a kind of like a walking dead. And he says, Olam mitonein al hafkrada chaim ke'et al mit'abdim et atzmam ledat shenitrabu rachman al etzlam. The world is complaining about the fact there's so many suicides now. V'ani mosif lido gam al hachai holech. I'm also concerned about the living, walking one, lo hemid et atzmo, who has not committed suicide, umikol makom meit, who nonetheless, in a sense, he is already dead. Chachaim naaseh Zol v'hefker etzlo, his life for him is totally cheap and meaningless, ownerless. L'chyot or lo l'chyot chat hilo, whether he lives or does, it doesn't make any difference to him. And this already reminded me a little bit of in the Shoah, especially in the death camps, of the concept of the Musulman, the people who were still alive, but they were so weak and even more so full of despair, that they'd completely given up the will to live, and everyone knew when a person had a certain look like that they wouldn't last very long, that it was basically at that point hopeless pretty much to try to even save them because they'd completely given up the will to live. And then he talks about how in the past it was, or even in the recent past when the situation was beginning, he said the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, had to work really hard to get a person to come to the level of being willing to commit suicide, which is, of course, a heinous crime in Judaism and a tremendous denial of Hashem's existence and providence. And it was very hard, and it didn't always work. He says, Va'atayit bonati v'riti anashim sheinam kofrim. Now I see people who are not heretics, holchim b'shirut libam, and they go with a hard heart, because their identity, their personal identity, their self-esteem has become so cheapened and so ownerless to them. Yemut, Yechye, Gan Eden, Gehedem, to live, to die, go to heaven, go to hell, Lamila Anochi Shalot, for his own essence. His own essence has become cheapened. And this is, again, is very much, first of all, we should point out the Rebbe was very aware of mental illness issues, and he spoke about it in some of his drashot, and even pointed out that it seemed like there was a higher level of certain mental health issues among the Jews than amongst the general population. That's a subject for really a different talk. We know, obviously, he was very well versed in psychological literature and educational literature of his time. But he's talking about people who've basically, again, have given up, have lost the will to live, don't care about anything. They've become depersonalized. And this is now language which is going to come up again in his drashot in the Shoah and Eish Kodesh and drashot Mishnah Dezam, of people who have lost they've become depersonalized, they've lost their essence, they've lost their any sense of self-esteem. There's a psychological disintegration, I think Reb Nechemia Poland would call it. And there's foreshadowings of these things now in the tremendous sufferings already in the 1920s. Okay, and then he ends it by saying, and again, very much coming back to the Shoah, 20 years before, Asher kocha b'derech krirot b'chol af ba'atzmuto. Like it says about Amalek, that he karcha b'derech, came upon you on the way, but all the Hasidic Sfarim are doresh the word karcha, that he made you cold. He made you lose passion, and he says here, he made you cold about everything, even about yourself. So this is a kind of a chilling short passage in the Rebbe's Yoman from apparently around 1928, 1929, it would seem, and also foreshadowing the Holocaust that we're marking today. So it's good to end on a more optimistic note. We should have Besorot Tovot. We're going into Yom Ha'atzmaut next week, Bezrat Hashem. There should be a lot of comfort to all of us that we have Medinat Yisrael, and we should have good tidings for Geula Shlema. Kol Tuv, Besorot Tovot, Shabbat Shalom.